Well, we've had some very interesting discussions in the morning. I have to say, even a little bit tame. I would have expected a bit more end-of-the-world scenarios with all the recent developments that's come out. I'm an urbanist and a landscape architect, so I'm particularly interested how to leverage technology and the fast evolving, emerging technologies and infinitely changing technologies for the end user. Um, so that's basically always my goal. And I've been in the Middle East for about 15 years now, and I have to credit Dubai for always being a front runner and almost an incubation lab in terms of technology. It's always been top of the agenda. We've seen the first driverless taxis take off here, maybe Hong Kong a little bit earlier, but we see AI part of our day-to-day life. We see the Middle East in general, but also Dubai as a front runner, embracing technology. And it's interesting within these discussions to see how fast, almost exponentially, it's gone. It's arguably in the last few years faster than the industrial revolution and the internet itself, the internet revolution, early 2000s. I mean, if we see 2 weeks ago, Apple's Vision Pro, where you're not just secluding yourself, you can actually look each other in the eye, where you completely can immerse yourself in a cinema, or when you sit in an airplane, you are live into a movie. You can collaborate, meaning that things happen to you in the metaverse or in 3D as digital twins, where you can have a conversation. It converts you into an avatar that looks very much like you, scarily a little bit, where you can have collaboration worldwide and at the same time tackle technical problems. And the way we do work has changed. Arguably, COVID has accelerated digital transformation. Within my profession, any planner or architect or engineer, we heard Ash already touch base on it. Things like BIM, Building Information Management, and GIS, which is Geographical Information Systems, and the combination of which has allowed us to plan ahead and has allowed us to create a digital environment where you have a blank canvas where you can see all the nitty-gritty from a beautiful design to all the engineering factors. And for example, if I have a population of X, will there be a crowd at the elevator, or how many, how do I make the public realm have enough seatings or facilities or parking, or how do I save water by utilizing the gray water? So technology is basically part of everything we do nowadays. I think the possibilities and the challenges are limitless. The scary part, obviously, being ending up in a sort of a matrix or the Terminator, when AI does realize that humans are actually the ones that are destroying the world the most. So let's not go into the regulation side of things. I would very much love to have this chat as a planner and look at the positives. And I think Dubai, again, is and the UAE is a front runner with conferences as this, seeing frontline technologists combining and being in dialogue with users, with planners, with designers. And yeah, again, it's what has happened now in the last few years or few months, even in this year, makes me excited and very curious what happens in the next 5. I don't know what your take on it is. I mean, I'm really from the architectural creative side. I think you're more from a security background, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know what your take on that is.
Thank you so much.
At the bottom, I think. Yeah, here we go.
Thank you so much, Marlon, for your the view on that technology and all. So I'm working as a CTO in information security, and we are responsible for like providing how actually we can make our infrastructure secure for this rapidly moving era for the technology. As you have mentioned that day by day we are actually rapidly increasing the technology like way of living. If you talk about the IoTs, the smart homes, right, and the infrastructure, if you talk about, and if you talk about some like a transportation in Dubai or around the globe, every corner.
Yeah.
So we are actually, the technology is making shaking impact on us and the day-to-day life, right? So actually we are responsible for providing the education, normally like how we can make our infrastructure secure. Because everyone actually liable on the technology nowadays. We are using mobile phones, we are using these laptops and all. So if you take the technology aside and if you take the security aside, so knowing the thing is a different thing. Just like how to use the mobile phones, how to use this smart home internet and the IoT devices. And the other part is the security. What about that security? So how much your devices are secure, how much your home environment is secure, which you have made, just like with the IoT devices or any other kind of smart things you have at home. So what kind of information actually they are getting from your side, what actually information you are aware about these sites.
Yep.
So what happens normally, if you talk about non-technical people, if you are the technical person, you know that how technology works and what kind of permissions actually you have provided. And nowadays, kids are also dependent on these mobile phones and the online gaming technologies and all. But not actually intentionally, but unintentionally that how they are sharing their personal information to these websites and all, how we can prevent that. So that is the actually main concern. Using the technology is a different thing, and using the technology with the security, that is the different point. So here we are discussing about that how rapidly this technology is growing up, and all the technology things are actually making that low-hanging fruit for everyone. So that things are very easier. If you talk about the transportation, if you talk about the like infrastructure, if you talk about the education fields and all, everything is actually like a smooth butter for us nowadays. So
Yes.
that's the main point. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think it's nothing different that in the 80s, you know, let's say the FBI hired hackers to outsmart the hackers, or
Yeah.
you know, now it's even how elections are won nowadays, or and that's scary. I mean, AI is infinitely smarter than we are,
Yes, yes.
and even the news that was it AlphaZero from Microsoft outplayed any AI chess player in 4 hours is already 5 years old news. I had to check that just now to
Right.
make sure I was on track with that. And another one is, for example, that everybody may or may not know is that, for example, Elon Musk's Neuralink has been FDA approved, and he showed of course, aside from all the trials that went wrong, he showed a demo where 2 monkeys were able telepathically to write a sentence
Right.
with their mind. So this is a little bit where, you know, if we do not have to speak anymore, if we can communicate telepathically, where indeed it was said like tomorrow's future is today. Well, actually, if you stand still, you get left behind. It's what the science fiction was of yesterday. It is already infinitely faster than us. So you're right, in terms of regulations, that is one thing. Leveraging the technology for good, as you mentioned, I'm completely on the same frequency on that. And I think we organically, as Ash and Salma mentioned just now, this is something partly needs to be controlled on a very high level.
Right.
Back to a discussion this morning, not politically or country or maybe intelligence related, so that development countries have an equal chance in it. I see it more like how we regulate nuclear weapons. It's that much dangerous. But that aside, technologically wise, for us to evolve indeed as a species, the technology is here and it's coming, and again, if you don't go with the movement, if you don't educate yourself continuously, you are going to be left behind. In urban planning and in landscape architecture, when we spoke about BIM, that's a normal thing. Sometimes on site, we still have contractors that walk around with a stack of documents where there is no way to see if the underground surfaces are clashing or not. Whereas if you have an iPad with a BIM model, or forget about the VR glasses, you can actually very easily see how many clashes there are. And if maybe, if I have to move this pipe 1 meter, I can save a couple of millions and a lot of trouble and a couple of months delay. So leveraging this technology for these infinite new possibilities is fantastic. And the discussion is Dubai-based. Dubai was one of the first that used open data and made it available, where I was doing my master's at RST here in 2018 to 20, where you could already get all the traffic data from RTA with all the accidents and why they happened and the demographics that they happened, in order to make smarter solutions for traffic planning, for example. And that's indeed amazing. You mentioned it: transportation, user experience, efficiencies, and also, hopefully, to tackle some of the very basic challenges, like how can we extend that winter season here as long as possible, that humidity, especially now coming, it's changing.
That is the biggest
revolution. August and September, we know it's coming,
Exactly.
How
beyond the expectation.
Microclimate, how we can make the outdoor space walkable more and a little bit longer, or
cloud seedings.
First and last mile is a very common term that we use, from your house to the bus stop or tram or metro and back home, or wherever you are. And that's still a physical challenge. That's an environmental challenge. And AI and digital twins allow us to accelerate the process of treating our planet better and making life more comfortable. And I do believe that as Dubai, we're really heading in the right direction, and we're heading there fast.
Yeah, definitely. You are right, Marlon. Actually, it's a really rapid change over here since last, if you talk about last like 15, 20 years. So actually it's completely different. That scenario, if you take like, I think 15, 20 years back, if you look behind, that what was the Dubai? Yeah. And currently you can see that like Dubai Eye is here. You can see the vision for next 20, 30 years.
Yep.
Right, you can see the vision and all. You can see the technologies, like some advancement in the devices as well, so which you can use. So if you come to the security part, like in aspect of the security, like we are using these technologies nowadays. We all are actually getting the advantages of these all the secure technology devices. But if you talk about its security, just like how secure we are, what do you think upon that topic? Like how secure we are? Just like so many people actually, they create their Gmail account, they create their Facebook account or the Instagram account. So do they read the privacy policies completely, or just agree, or just like that? So what do you think about it? That it's our responsibility, or it should be the awareness in that we have to actually read the privacy policy before using any products from any other vendor, just like Apple products, or just like the Google products. So do we need that awareness? Because what happens normally nowadays, we all are aware about the technology and we are using all the devices as well. But the problem is the awareness. For example, if you take the example of in our cybersecurity domain, we always make the Windows vulnerable. That Windows platform is the vulnerable platform, which we are using everywhere for all the technical devices and all. Yeah. So what makes Windows vulnerable? Windows is itself vulnerable, or we are making that vulnerable? Because human is the most susceptible error for all the devices. Right?
Well, there's this meme going around.
It's a lack of awareness. That yes, Windows has all the features, just like as compared to Mac, that most of the people say that Mac is more secure than Windows. iOS devices are more secure than the Android devices. But what is the reason behind it? Because the awareness. Sometimes we are not aware about that, what exactly Windows having the privacy policies and the pin security, password security, and the harden that operating system, like the deep security configurations.
I think blockchain has opened that discussion
Yeah.
wide open, because
Yes.
even you're right. It used to just be iOS and DOS actually in all
Yes, sir. Because we are thinking that this is the problem from the vendor side, but actually this is not the problem from the vendor side. This is the problem from the end user, which is using that device, because they don't know how to make the configuration. Even we are not patching our system, updating our system regularly, because this is the human tendency most of the time to procrastinate the things. Just like, okay, I will update it later, I will update it after 2 days and 3 days. What can happen in between that time?
Let me answer your first question. Nobody's safe.
Yeah, exactly. That is the first rule.
I just had a baby in December, and if my wife, and I'm not in the traditional role, we both spoke about it, but let's give an example. She was talking about a new stroller type or a new crib or a diaper brand. It would pop up on my feed, on my Facebook, on my Instagram. Siri is always listening. And we've also seen these memes where you can switch that off in 3 places. Well, the weirdest subjects, like for example, a song that you didn't hear for 20 years, that I didn't physically type in, actually, or that I didn't say to Siri to search, it may pop up in my wife's phone. So security-wise, already there is ways around every system. Because AI and machine learning are infinitely smarter and that's the definition of self-learning, right? It gets smarter, not with a factor 10, with a factor 1,000,000 every time it gets applied in a different way. So you're right, there is a human factor, and as much the application of that machine power to your own benefit. If I give you a simple example, in Dubai, for example, in some of the residential areas, you have lakes because we want water to surround it, but there's a big fence around it for safety. In Europe or in some of the Western countries, there's a signboard saying there's no lifeguard here. If you put your children here, it's dangerous. It is at your own risk. And I think when you raise your children, it is your own responsibility. Well, actually, my nephews and nieces are more smarter than I am when it comes to coding and all these things. Anyway, they're born into it, whereas I'm still Generation X. And, you know, from before, I remember the time before mobile phones, but that doesn't matter. I think if it is every parent's responsibility to find a proper way of educating their own children in a responsible way, to have them exposed to the dangers of the world in the right dose and the right time. Things like screen time, you need to disconnect as well, otherwise, you know, we'll all have square eyes after a while. And at the same time, there needs to be also enough room to play and to discover and to find out, because if you shield somebody completely from it, same with the fences here, there's a good chance kids will find this more interesting to climb over, and they find their own way around it. So I think there is a responsibility for us as parents, as people, and then as professionals. Right. It's not so much as in policing, but more in governance, making guidelines that everybody agrees on are technical and for everybody's benefit, not politically charged, but more to make sure that, you know, what you and I and everybody else, or let's say the vast majority of 90% of people agree that that's non-ethical or that is not conducive for humankind or for the environment or for the planet as a whole.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. And the major factor that if you talk about the other factor, just like if we are secure enough, right? So the environment is secure, the company infrastructure is secure, our devices is also completely secure. Just you mentioned that a human is the most susceptible error, and this is the biggest threat for everything. So if you talk about that, if the devices and the infrastructure and this all the technological area, just like the home environment, the technology over here in Dubai, so how you can think about it, that how we can actually bypass it? Is there any possibility that we can bypass, or we can actually find a other way, or is there any other corner around that?
Let's try to go away from the let's say doom scenario to the more practical examples. I travel a lot because I live in Dubai and I work in Saudi in the same time. I don't have to use my passport anymore. There used to be Smart Gate,
Right.
which arguably Dubai was already fast, that you
Right,
just with
right.
your Emirates ID you could just bypass the queues, and now it's just biometric. When I go in and when I go out, it's already known in the system, and unless you want to start cutting each other's eyeballs out or find ways to synthetically duplicate, that's really, really complicated. So if you want to have added security with a fingerprint on top of an eye scan, I think this is inherently, I see the story of, you know, you want to buy a house with a door that has a key. You know, technology will evolve so fast that everything will probably be keyless, and you know, when you go to the supermarket, there'll be a little scanner, and or now it's your iPhone. Arguably, that's still a device. So wearables, I think, eventually will just disappear. The Neuralink example in Sweden, there's a chip now that is the size of a rice grain, where I think more than 50,000 people are using it, which has everything, your banking information, and again, then you can always have the counter argument, okay, but you can hack into somebody, you will always be able to do. So sometimes we need to just take a step back. A credit card can be skimmed, a wallet can be stolen.
Definitely, definitely.
You know, physically somebody can break into your house. So digitally, kind of the same rules of engagement should apply, right?
Yes, yes.
You should not be allowed to do something that takes from another person or hurts another person, and those rules, definitely ethics and health and safety and security, basic security, I think these are pillars of humankind. They always have to be baseline, not an objective or something like that.
Right, right. So what is your actually opinion on that, if you come to like a technological security, just like, do you think that still we are somewhere vulnerable, that like the internet devices or our mobile phones, if we are using that safeguard and securities, we are using all the antiviruses, we are using the firewalls in our infrastructure. So do you still think that we are vulnerable? What is your opinion on that? So what other methods actually we can use for that?
Yeah, so when technology does a lot of things for you, more efficiently, better, and let us just have a dreamy day and assume that it's not going to take over the world and wipe out humanity, but we use it for good. One of the reasons I moved to Saudi Arabia now and started working at the Red Sea is, for example, that we now have a net plus 30% conservation benefit. We're actually growing coral, we're disconnecting. We only, from a 33 million square meter area, we're only developing 2%. So, and that takes a lot of technology, to be honest. We're doing things like, for example, 90% off-site manufacturing. So when we have to drill some holes or put some piles in the ocean, it's minimum impact and it's restored very quickly. So we're not even anymore in sustainability compliance. We want to give back to the planet, and we need to, because as a human race, it's true, nobody will deny it here in the room or any other room. We have been damaging the planet to the point that it's really alarming. So I think that, again, coming back to the same point, and apologies for repeating myself as a bit of an activist, but yeah, to preserve what we have, that we don't have to knock on Elon's door to ask if we can go to Mars a little bit quicker because we ran out of planet. I think that, you know, ultimately it sounds really, you know, a bit quirky, but that is what we should use technology for. And then there'll be plenty of jobs in tourism, and I don't need a robot to guide me through a mountain hike, you know. I still want to have this human connection and do physical
Agreed.
exercise and enjoy and connect and communicate. So I do think that the two are not mutually exclusive. And I do, on the same token, very much believe that we have to use technology for good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So here now we would like to have some opinions on the from the people, just like how actually they can think about the technology, and if they have faced any kind of like challenges with these technology, because everything has some advantages and disadvantages for sure, right?
Absolutely.
Some facilities and some difficulties for the using the technology and all. So we would like to hear from the people that what they think actually about that technology. So for them, what was the actually the advantages and what were the disadvantages? What problems they had faced for this technology? Yeah, anyone? Yes, please.
Can we get a microphone to the back? Oh, you need to just switch it
Please
on
turn
the
it
side,
on.
yeah.
So very insightful, and I think you resonating a lot of thinking that we do as well as technology professionals. I think one, since you asked for contribution, it's just my personal opinion, but one of adoption of technology and especially looking at it as an accelerated way of achieving your goal, right? It could be for anything. I mean, at work, it could be to increase efficiency, cut costs. In personal life, it could be to improve some KPIs personally for yourself, or using social media for better connections and so on. I think one of the major things is, and I think it's quite prominent in particular, we don't want to differentiate based on age, but is about the mental block that a particular generation of people have, right? That technology is a by the way sort of a bit and not an ingrained part of my existence. Whereas if you see much younger generation, which are in the early 20s, or even younger for that matter, for them it is a part of their daily lives.
Yes.
Right.
Very little conviction or pushing you require to use and explore new technologies, right? For them it's natural.
100%.
So I think one is about an open mind, which needs to be encouraged, especially targeted at a particular genre of people who have the fact that technology is an aid, is not essentially the only way to get there.
Right.
In more, to sweeten it for them in terms of the more, benefits rather than the disadvantages. And secondly, needless to say, it will become mainstream. It's just a matter of time. I mean, I have conducted business successfully before WhatsApp, but today I can't do a single transaction unless it's on some messaging platform, right? That's just how we've naturally got ourselves invited to the party. So I guess it's a matter of time. But since you asked about how do some people look at it as an acceleration and some don't, I think it's a mindset and also to do with inherent mental blocks that some people have. So
Of course, it's a generational thing, very much
True.
so. I mean, I had to. My parents are baby boomers, 43 and 49, and even me. I remember that we had a house phone with a dial, and you had to make an appointment with each other to be at the phone at a certain time.
True.
Whereas I grew up with Lego and then technical Lego and some of it that you could wind up and it had a battery. And my nephew, at, if I'm not mistaken, 8 or 9, asked for Christmas if he could have a motion sensor for his robotic Lego so he could change a car into a... There was a couple of options. So they grew up and that required him to actually program with Python. So Python, you guys are all probably, most of you more into IT than I am, but that's still a core programming language that's used today, I believe. And to have that from an 8 or 9-year-old, I can't really remember the exact age, is flabbergasting. And I guess that's human evolution, to your point, right? It comes with time. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because most of the programs and the applications and the softwares, tools for the ethical hacking and the penetration testing and for information security, cyber security are written in that Python, Ruby and Perl language.
Yeah.
So these are the essential things for nowadays for the kids so that they can develop the programs and they can actually dive into this technology things.
Exactly.
Because it's gonna be an era. So we have a lot of emerging techniques which is in place actually. Currently we are initiating these all the things. So which will help for the future of them, which will actually make a concrete decision for their future, which will make all these things just like a low-hanging fruit for them.
Yep.
So they don't need to actually make the do the struggled a lot in that.
Yep.
So that's really impactful, really shock-shaking.
Super impactful, and then again, maybe a little bit back to like a city and Dubai level. Regionally, autonomous vehicles are already here. The way that we go to work. I was recently in London, and there's a rule that within, I think, a year or 2 years, all taxis have to be electric or hybrid. We have many cities. Ash was mentioning. I'm Dutch, so Amsterdam or Holland is obviously close to my heart, where indeed residents are being made part of the process of developing their own backyard, so to speak, right? So and those are really good examples of using technology for good. And also, back to Dubai, in terms of sustainability, the whole new coastline being developed. And maybe that's an example to my point earlier. Like, we have all this technology, but we're not forgetting about the human aspect of it.
Right.
You know, we want to have a good lifestyle. We want to try to... I mean, you've seen now, okay, the e-scooters is something trendy, but we've also seen the emergence of cyclists and running groups, so and things like urban farming. So, and I've said it before in other conferences, like I feel that the more we get connected, the more sometimes we become disconnected, meaning, you know, spending hours and hours on Netflix and social media. However, you also see that these kind of trends have a reverse effect. The more COVID showed us that we were not able to go out every time, you also see this pull towards non-technology related activities, going back to nature, having a conversation together, a hug, you know, physically,
right?
You know, these kind of things. So I think it's always going to be a negotiation, and it's always going to be important that governments like UAE embrace and put the priorities in the right place. And I think we are here, I mean, the reason we're having these kind of chats and the reason that we are in an incubating environment, and which I love to be in the Middle East, is because we have here the resources financially and the drive of people not to wait for 10 years, but to have things happen yesterday, you know?
Right.
And that's really motivating and also assuring for the, you know, the doom scenarios. Everybody thinks about them once in a while, including myself. But I think we're in good hands, and I think we have a very exciting future ahead.
Right. So based on your topic, just like you have mentioned that we have a really exciting future ahead. So earlier we were discussing about the advantages and disadvantages of the technology. So what do you think about that e-scooter? You just mentioned that we are using that as e-scooters. We are using e-scooters for like 200 meters, 300 meters for going office or office to home, just like that. So what do you think that after post office, then we are using that treadmill in the gym for 1 hour? What do you think on that?
Maybe I'm the wrong person to ask. Number one, I'm Dutch. So I think in Holland, the average bicycle to one resident is 2.5, half of them in the kennels. But, you know, so we are already a very much pedestrian and cyclist-oriented society. You know, as it's also a cool gadget, right?
Right.
Like the speed that it's dangerous as well, by the way,
Really?
which makes it maybe arguably cooler.
I never used it actually, so I don't know the speed.
But I mean, in my youth, you had motorcycles, so not motorbikes, as in, I believe it was up to 50 cc, and then below 20 cc, which means the maximum speed was like 30. Well, a cyclist goes 20, so it's just 10 kilometer more. You needed to have a helmet for these, and you needed like a license for these. So compared to, let's say, my own reference base in terms of standard, these things are too easily to be accessible, and at the same time, I don't know statistically the data in terms of accidents, and I think getting people out of a car in a mostly, we talked about the evolution. When I started working in the Middle East in 2007, 2008, a lot of the residential area were asphalt wall to wall. You would drive literally up to a shop, you park your car and you go in. There was no sidewalk or there were no trees, because that was just the reality. So to get people, number one, out of the car, to get, and I still render this part of soft mobility. Maybe it's a gateway drug to get them on the bicycle eventually, you know?
And what about the like health aspects? What do you think? That is it good for the health, and what are the advantages and disadvantages for the health for that? If you are using bicycle instead of walking for like 5 minutes or like
no,
7
no.
minutes.
I mean, there's no. I mean, mechanically, there is no difference between a car and a scooter. You press a button and you go from A to B. So arguably, it's, you know, from that point of view, that's what I'm saying, as a landscape architect and somebody from Holland, maybe I'm the wrong guy to ask, because it's a cool gadget. It's not good for your health. It's a lazy vehicle. Let's call a spade, right? It's something cool, it's something nice, but it's lazy in a way. Putting in the, you know, the pedals like you do with your steps. Maybe to counter it with another example, I think it's great that you can see on your watch and you're confronted with you know, how many steps did you do per day. I believe the minimum healthy is like 6,000 a day, if I'm not mistaken. And many times when I do extended hours in the offers, I don't hit 3,000. And if my little phone says, hey, dude, go and get some water or take a break now, it's good. It's a reminder. So that's technology for good. Back to the scooters. I can't sit here, you know, as a professional and say it's healthy for you, because it's not.
Right.
It's not.
Absolutely. So that is actually some for the technology aspects, just like for the information security aspect. So we have different actually point of view about that. Like for information security, what exactly it is. Is it a personal safety or the like architectural safety, or just like for the management safety? So we have different aspect for that. For if you come to that like personal safety, what people are thinking about that do we require the information security or cyber security for only for the job purpose, or only for the professional purpose, or for our personal safety?
Well, in this, sorry to go a little bit trendy term, but in this cancel culture where everybody lives through TikTok and Instagram and it is maybe the younger generations, but nobody actually looks at when they say we change the terms and agreements. They're just, okay, yalla, as they say here. A few
Because
seconds missed, I missed 10 posts in this time.
They have to, because they don't have any other option. They have just only option, they have to agree with that. But the point is, actually, you should know about it. You should be aware about what you are agreed with.
So the point I'm trying to make is that we're very selective when it comes to security.
Right.
If you go somewhere and somebody was able to put his phone close to yours, and all of a sudden your Facebook account is hacked, or there's 10,000 dirham missing in your account, then you wake up all of a sudden. But I think if we really know how much of our information is out there used, I mean, I think Instagram nowadays, they can use your photos for marketing. So like I said, I have a 6-month-old. Can you imagine if I see her on a billboard all of a sudden for a diaper commercial or something like that without my permission? But I think technically what I'm saying is possible. it is true. Okay, I have my account set to private, not public anymore like before. But yeah, we need to educate ourselves, and for personal use and for personal safety, it's important to keep up to date.
Right,
with,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly, because we all are using these emerging technologies. Just
Yeah.
like if you talk about that IoTs, smart lights we have, smart TVs we have,
Yep.
right? These all the gadgets we have, like Alexa, Google. We have. I had a lot of cases before actually where people were complaining these IoT devices are not safe and secure because they had actually configured one light inside their room, and their neighbor actually got connected with that light, and they were actually controlling turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, just like that.
Yep.
So then they have complained that these IoT devices, these are not safe and secure because other people can also connect with that. But the thing is the awareness. They were not aware about the secure configuration, that how to make the password security on that, because everyone, I think 95% people are using just like a Wi-Fi without any configuration.
Yeah,
They don't
and-
change any configuration, just like if the technical people will come and they will configure that router on their home, and they are using that same SSID and the same password because we are not making any configuration.
That's why we have a duty as a community to instill a certain level of governance. We need
Right.
to keep companies in check. And for example, the data collection on every single person is probably very scary if you know that what you posted 20 years ago is still out there. And at the same time, we're very, like I said, selective and naive about certain things. When it comes to personal security, of course, when the technology evolves, also the security risks evolves. And I think, again, back to the same point, and some of the discussions tapped on it early on, it is important that there is a certain level of governance. And I think whether you're talking about the metaverse or blockchain or digital twinning, as architects, we have that. It still needs to be approved. I can't, even if I develop a model, a building, a community, a residential area with the newest technology, digital twins, we all as companies and as ultimately the client, I need to sign off for your safety. If you use one of my let's say driverless vehicles to get from the airport to the hotel, or in a simple way, for example, in our new airport there is a technology that you don't have to check out your luggage. It will go to your room directly, things to improve your customer experience. If it doesn't, I'm still responsible where your bag is, right? Same as in an analog system, if you go on a travel and you go overseas, that your luggage can end up on the wrong belt. So yeah, I mean, within technology there'll always be glitches, and within human error there'll always be glitches. So governance, I think, governance is a baseline. It's something that needs to always be there. And obviously we're in uncharted waters and unknown territories. And I believe also what was said earlier in the discussion, there is a sort of a natural evolution that's going on where we're kind of blindsided. And sometimes, in order to learn how to ride the bicycle, you need to learn how to walk first, and
Right.
you need to fall off the bike a couple of times.
Basic terminologies.
Yeah, basics. So I do think common sense and rational thinking is always going to be a guiding light, and it needs to be there in order to decide what is ethical or not, regardless of your background or your culture, just basic security and basic ethics. And I do believe that those rules have to be there, not in a policing form, but that's why I like to use the word governance, as in creating guidelines that everybody establish that this is correct. This protects everybody, not just a few. And this reduces the amount of errors or, let's say, windows to break, or,
Right.
Yeah.
So now the next thing is that how we can actually correlate that with the landscape architecture, the technology, which we are actually getting nowadays, and in this rapid era. So how we can actually implement that technology in that landscape architecture?
Yeah, so we're doing it already. So basically, in evolving cities, urbanism is very prominent, even in an area as Dubai, where we can arguably just move further east, and we're doing that already. It used to be Sheikh Zayed Road, and there's Al Khail Road, now there's Sheikh Mohammed Road, and we're going further into the desert, which is very normal, and we're stretching out towards Abu Dhabi.
Right, absolutely.
Right? So we do have, let's say, a bit more space, like in Holland, where we're really running out of space and we have to go vertical. So a lot of things still have to do with basic efficiency, user experience, and every time that a new technology emerges, somebody's going to play around with it, and somebody's going to think something of it, and then we all together have to make up our mind whether we're going to choose to use it or not. Obviously, as landscape architects and as urban planners, we kind of need to read your mind, and we do that not just blindly. We do these kind of conferences. We talk with the community. We do surveys, and technology helps with that. Right. I can, if I go and develop a new project, I can, with your permission, access your health data and know on the average area, okay, maybe we want to do a bit more healthy. We want to invest in more, something non-technology, in more trees, so that we have more shade and we can reduce the temperature. Then we have the technology component is, okay, how can we use or reuse every drop of water, because water is expensive here.
Definitely.
Right? So we have things that are, for example, very expensive, like subsoil drainage, but in 10 years' time, it will pay itself back tenfold. So how it changes landscape architecture, some things are very basic, but things like irrigation, mechanical, civil engineering, technology as part of it is always evolving, and leveraging that data and the technology itself to create better experiences, as simple as they may be, because if I want to go to a park, I still want to just go to a park, right? If I want to go to something more technological, I can go to a mall and I can go to these experiences, the more immersive things. So I think everything has a place, and our role as designers will stay the same, but if you will, the playing board changes and evolves. So as long as we evolve adequately with it, I think we're good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So I think we are running out of our time. So we would like to hear from the audience, actually, if they have any question regarding that, the technology and the information security or the cyber security. So anyone, please.
All right.
Yes, please. Yes.
Hi. Thanks a lot for your insightful thoughts and what I've been sharing. I was just thinking around when we talked about Dubai as a particular city, and we specifically thinking about how Dubai has been changing and has changed. I think, do you see that Dubai roadmap, or particularly if I talk about UAE roadmap of 2030, right? Country has announced 100 projects which is going to contribute to its economy and doubling the GDP growth around here. Especially, do you see that situation like any other city in the world, by your knowledge, has grown so far or is being growing so far at the fast pace, where we talk about not only the technological advancement, but the sustainability goals. Yes. We talk about waste management, solar energy, water waste management, coming from all different dimensions. I believe the city has been doing predominantly great and leaps and bounds, and technology has been on the forefront in all the aspects of it, looking at it. Now, looking at what do you think, if by any knowledge you have understanding around quantum genomics, do you feel that that has to be in a next technological revolution what we're going to have? And if yes, do you foresee in the space of health tech or healthcare, because we have seen just pandemic. Okay, we have witnessed pandemic, what it can do. So quantum genomics can help us technologically going ahead, and if yes, to by far. if you have any opinion about technology and Dubai in that case.
Personally, Dubai has always been very fast in implementing also where it came from. I mean, the city is not an old city like, for example, you go in Europe, you have 500 or 800 year old town centers. We're talking here about 50 years, like
Yes.
10% of that development rate. And if you then look at, you know, of course, in the first, let's say, the 90s and the early 2000s, it was getting the basic infrastructure, getting the metro into place, the tram, you know, basic transport, healthcare indeed, education, economy. Of course, those are key pillars of development. That being said, the embracing of technology, for example, when you talk about healthcare or emergency services, having a central command room rather than having district fire services and emergency services, that's now all managed centrally. So technology obviously played a very big role with that. Same thing goes with healthcare. Healthcare is you know, next to IT, is one of the fastest emerging technologies. I believe this week the first synthetic embryo. This I find personally a little bit scary, but you know, the advancements are there, and the same with the Neuralink I mentioned earlier, is supposedly have a paraplegic be able to walk, and somebody who's born blind is able to see eventually. These are very, very exciting developments, and these are not just like a dream or something sci-fi anymore. It's happening. So I hope that, you know, I'm very optimistic, and I think if there's any place, it's going to be here in Dubai, where we're at the forefront of that. Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you a lot.
Any other question, please? No?
I think
Okay.
we're in red. We can see here. Time's up.
Time's up.
Thank you so much, guys. Can we please put our hands together, everybody?